booktube. I'm here with a more serious bookshelf tour. These are actually my read books, and I can actually say things about them more than that. You know, they're covered in brown wrapping paper and I don't know what they're about. This is the shelf we are concentrating on. Now technically my shelves go by author's last name, starting with A here, B, C, D, E, but we're just going to concentrate on the cube as opposed to alphabetical order. Now, the camera, my tripod, cannot reach to aim up there. So I'm going to show you, but it might be a little shaky. So that's where we're going to start. So we're starting up here with the George R. R. Martin Song of Ice and Fire. All the books that I'm convinced are going to be published at this point. And I didn't read them in these copies, I actually read them in ebook and then found these copies later. So they're nice. They're these little, I think a lot of people have seen these. These little leather-ish bound things with super thin pages. Yeah. And then this is like the first piece of art I ever bought that was not like a poster of a boy band or anything. And it's the Fellowship of the Ring. They're done with like a foil paper. And then we have Khal Drogo. That was a gift from a friend, but I love Jason Momoa, so that was pretty cool. Some random things up there. Lannister always pays his debt, so this is kind of like Game of Thrones stuff, Mario stuff. Chip from Beauty and the Beast, and we're not going to go to the other shelf because that's for another video. And skulls, and then back here, behind this picture, we have an ampersand, and all these books are about religion. They go over there too. I can't say much about them because I haven't read these ones. So we're not going to go into them. And also that's like really awkward positioning there for me to actually even see what's up there. So, yeah. And they're not wrapped because they're part of a project, a goal that I'm working on. I'm just going to go over some of the decorative stuff. This garland is actually on my window over here, but you'll see it in some of the shots. I have this here. So let's turn it on. There are lights with little Polaroid pictures of my cats. And they go along the shelves over there too. This is something I made from a Lord of the Rings book. There's the map behind there, one of the covers, and that's like the 3 rings for the Elven Kings under the sky, the, you know, 1 ring to bring them all in the darkness, bind them, that thing from Lord of the Rings. Right there. There, you can actually, if it will focus. There. Yeah. What other decorative things can we talk about to just get out of the way? These are Psyducks. There's a story behind these. When my parents owned a store, my mom and I, whoever worked at night, would hide the Psyduck or make it do something silly. And so like that's why he has like painted toes and stuff like that, and they're not in the best of shapes because we like taped stuff to them and gave them some funny things to do. It was just a way to keep us entertained. Then we have a little Bob-omb and a little Luigi and Mario Nintendo stuff. And then we have a Ninja Turtle toy from when I was a kid. This is kind of funny. You pop his head in and you squeeze his legs and his head pop backs out. And then there's Eevee. That's my favorite Pokemon. And that's all that's decorative on this shelf because, in case you can't tell, it's double stacked. So before making this video too much longer talking about things that aren't books, let's just get into it. So we're going to start here with the A's. Kind of push that out of the way. So here you have Rivers of London by Ben Aronovich. I've listened to this on audio actually. So I haven't actually read this copy, but I wanted a copy on my shelves to kind of signify that, you know, this is one of my favorite series. And then we have Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, and I have read this book, and in case you can't tell, it's been tabbed quite a bit. And this is a really good book. I only keep books that I really enjoyed or think I'm going to reread again, or that have nostalgic reasons for me to keep them. So then we have Douglas Adams. I actually just recently reread the first book. This is the trilogy of 4. But there's actually 5 books in the series. And I think this was published before he passed away. So that's why. No, he died. This was published after he died. I don't know why they didn't include all 5 books in here, but oh well. But yeah, it looks like a chunker, but it's actually 4 books in one. And this is the 5th book, Mostly Harmless. I have read all of these. That was before I was tabbing them. So that's the 5th book in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And then we have the Dirk Gently series by Douglas Adams. I actually prefer these over Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. They're about a really weird detective, and the Norse gods kind of get involved and all sorts of weird things happen. Yeah, I definitely love this series. And then we have more Douglas Adams, The Salmon of Doubt. This was published posthumously, and The Salmon of Doubt is an unfinished Dirk Gently novel, and then there are some of his other collected works in here as well. And then this was a series my brother got me, actually. It begins with The Clown Service by Guy Adams, and then moves into The Rain-Soaked Bride, and the 3rd book, unfortunately, is wrapped on my shelf somewhere, so I haven't read that one yet. And this is like a spy series, but it has to do with magical science fiction type elements like time travel and that kind of weird stuff. And this one I think has to do with a ghost. It's been a while since I've read them, so they're due for a reread. I think I really enjoyed them. They're really quite funny. Watership Down. It's a classic. I read it before I was tabbing things, and this book is quite damaged, but I rather enjoyed this. It's a really sad book about bunnies whose home is destroyed by urban expansion. Then we have some Edward Albee plays. My teacher in high school introduced us to the Zoo Story. I haven't read The American Dream yet, but I've read the Zoo Story, so that's why it's on the shelf. And then Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? I read that in university. He's like an absurdist person. I highly recommend the Zoo Story. That's a really messed up play, but it really has a lot to say. So here we have Little Women, and I'm pretty sure I've read this, but I can't remember. I read it when I was really young, so it's due for a reread. And here we have Hans Christian Andersen's The Complete Illustrated Stories. I probably haven't read all of these, but I've read enough to consider it read enough to put on the shelf. These books up here I recently reread in December. So we have The True Confessions of Charlotte Doyle by Avi and Bamboo and Friends by John Atkinson. And these are just books from when I was a kid and I really liked. And they should actually be in the shelf over here instead of on top. And then we have the King of E series. This is one of my favorite historical fiction. I kissed the cover. They didn't have dust jackets when I got them. Yeah, really good series. I recently reread it so I could tab the first book. There's 2 books in each volume here, and it's about a man who accidentally becomes king of this place called Ease. And then we have I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou, and I should have tabbed this because I actually taught it when I was in school to become a teacher. That was quite a book to teach. And then we have Blackout by Hubert Aquin. And this is actually a rare book. I was looking for it online and everywhere it was like $100+ and then I found it for like $5 through Abe's Books, and I was like, I'm holding on to this one because it's valuable. And I honestly cannot remember what it's about. I know it was a bit weird. That's all I really remember. And then I have Company Town by Madeline Ashby. This was for Canada Reads one year, and I actually read it on ebook and didn't find this copy until years later in a free little library. And more science fiction. Here we have some Asimov, Foundation and Second Foundation. I've read more Asimov, but they didn't stay on my shelves, unfortunately. But these 2 have. I really enjoyed them. These are just, you could arguably tell that they're short stories, but they're all kind of interconnected, telling the place of like the same place. So yeah. And you'll notice there's spots missing because I have pulled out books that I want to reread. So that's why like there's no book here, but there's going to be a book there at the end of this year. At the end of this month, actually. I'll put it back. And so here we go. Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach. This is actually a really cool book. Of course I open it to a non-illustrated page. With pictures of seagulls. And it's about a seagull who gains like almost human-like consciousness, and it's all like his philosophy and stuff. And it is really quite cool. A really interesting read. Really short book because a lot of it's pictures. Then we come up to one of my favorite authors. This is the first one I read by her, The Hero's Walk by Anita Rao Badami. This is about a young girl in Canada, and her parents die, and she gets sent over to live in India with her grandparents. And it's kind of like a reverse of what usually happens in Canada. Like in Canadian fiction, we get the stories of people coming from other places to Canada, but this is a Canadian girl going over to India. And it's such a wonderful book. And then we have Tamarind Mem by her, which is about a mother and daughter relationship. Again, I have to reread these so I can tag them. I kind of regret not tagging years ago. This was a Canada Read selection, Suzanne by Anaïs Barbeau-Lavalette, about a person searching for what their grandmother was like. And then we have the Abarat series, book 1 and book 2. These are really cool by Clive Barker. This is kind of a YA, and there's really weird illustrations of his characters in here. Full page illustrations. I'm looking for the third book with all the illustrations as well to add and read to my collection, and these are really good series. And then we have Silk by Alessandro Barrico, and this is a beautiful book about a man on the silk trade in historical fiction. Beautiful story. Flaubert's Parrot by Julian Barnes. I'll link my video talking about this book. I really thoroughly enjoyed this. Then we have The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. I mean, we should know what that book's about. Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. Just a play I read in university and enjoyed. Oronko by Afra Bend. I read this again in university too. It's one of the first ever novels, actually, and it was written by a woman. Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience. William Blake is one of my favorite poets, so I have this little collection here. Then we have some Judy Blume. We have Blubber, which is about a girl dealing with being bullied for being overweight, and Are You There, God It's Me, Margaret, probably her most well-known books there. Then we have Joseph Boyden's Wenjack, and I know there's controversy about Joseph Boyden, but this book is really good, telling the story of Channy Wenjack, who escaped from a residential school and ended up dying. The Cat's Pajamas by Ray Bradbury, which is a collection of short stories. And then we get to the back shelf, and there's more Joseph Boyden here. This is the Orenda. This isn't the copy I read, but I saw this hardcover copy and I had to have it. Here we go, Ray Bradbury, Fahrenheit 451, a classic. We have The Martian Chronicles by him as well, which is a great story about humans coming to Mars and talking about colonization and all that. The Frankenstein Murders by Catherine Bradshaw. This is really good. It's like Sherlock meets Frankenstein, trying to investigate whether Frankenstein was real or not. Frankenstein's monster was real or not. And the twists are amazing. Bertolt Brecht's The Threepenny Opera. Another book from university. I actually tagged that one. And then we have Wuthering Heights. This is one of my favorite novels, my favorite classics. We have The Unlikely Ones by Mary Brown. I reread that recently. We have Sonnets from the Portuguese. This is a Hallmark edition book. Just really nice to read there. John Brunner is one of my favorite authors. So we have Stand on Zanzibar here, which is about overpopulation. Then we have The Whole Man, which was not at all what this cover is about, but I love this cover, how colorful it is. But none of this is featured in the book at all. Like, at all. It's about a disabled man who has telepathic powers. And then we have the first book I ever read by him, and I read it on ebook, so it's not tagged. And this is The Sheep Look Up, which is an ecological, post-apocalyptic novel. Then we have another one of my all-time favorite books, The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs by Steve Rosati. Probably heard me talking about that a million times, and I won't shut up about it. Charles Bukowski, some poetry here, Mockingbird, Wish Me Luck. And then we got Bone Palace Ballet, and his novel, Ham on Rye, which is a really sad book about, autobiographical book about him growing up. Now we have the next cube, The Awakening by Kate Chopin. This I actually just recently read in November or December of last year. It was an interesting book about women. The Master and the Margarita. This is not the copy I read, because the copy I read completely fell apart, so I actually found this at the thrift store and like this cover better. This shade of blue is really nice. This is a Russian classic by Mikhail Bulgakov. Bleh. A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. Really weird novel, you probably know it from the movie. The N Body Problem by Tony Burgess. This is one of the most messed up books I've ever read. It's illustrated, but I don't know if it's safe to show you any of the illustrations. Is this one okay? Okay, that one's okay. So like there's zombies, right? But even if you chop them up into pieces, they don't stop moving. And like some really messed up stuff starts happening. And yeah, don't go into this book if you're squeamish or, you know, afraid of vulgarity. It is weird. But it's good, so that's why it's on the shelf. Then we have A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett, and of course The Secret Garden as well. I recently reread these, that's why they're tagged. The Secret Garden is okay, but A Little Princess, oh my gosh, this book is... I wish I had her as a friend when I was little. That's all I can say. Then we have Naked Lunch by William S. Burroughs. And yes, I DNF'd this book a long time ago, but I can't take it off my shelf. It's just such a classic, but I don't know if I could bring my stomach. I don't know if I can stomach this book. Italo Calvino's If on a Winter's Night a Traveler. Yeah, just another modern classic. The Outsider by Albert Camus. Philosophical classic there. And then this is the only Orson Scott Card book you're going to see on my shelves, Ender's Game. And I don't like the person, the author, but this book is just, it's so good. The Fat Man in History by Peter Carey. I keep this because that story, I can't tell you exactly what it's about, but it sticks with me still. Like, I still want to go back and reread this. It's a bunch of short stories. Alice's Adventures Underground. This is pretty cool. This is this word right here, I can't say it, I'm not going to try. The 1864 manuscript. So it's like his handwriting with his doodles of the original book. And then we have the complete works of Lewis Carroll here, which include all his poetry and everything as well. And Casanova just fell over. He likes lying down. The Story of My Life by Giacomo Casanova. And it's not all what you expect. This is abridged, I believe. But it's, you know, it's very good. He wasn't just, you know, sleeping around with everyone, even though he was sleeping around with a lot of people, but he did some really interesting things in his life. And, oh, this book was really cool too. Diary of the War of the Pigs by Adolfo Bioy Casares. Old people get targeted, and they're being killed off and beaten to death. It's really interesting. And then we have Pinocchio by C. Collodi, and I got this really cool illustrated edition. Oh gosh, that's show a picture of him hanging from a tree. You know, little illustrations there of Pinocchio being just like a bad little boy. Up here is one of my favorite plays of all time. I read it so much that my copy fell apart. And this is actually, some notes I made on it. And this is a copy of Life is a Dream by Pedro Calderón de la Barca. And it is one of the funniest plays of all time. And then back here we have The School for Good and Evil by Soman Chainani, and I recently got the rest of the books in the series. This really took like your typical fantasy fairy tale type settings and kind of twisted them. We have The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. I do have a Mary Higgins Clark book. That's something that, you know, I wouldn't have thought would be on my shelves a while ago, but it is. It's All Through the Night. This was actually a gift from my grandparents. Then we have 2001 A Space Odyssey in this naked hardback. Rendezvous with Rama and Childhood's End. This is due for a reread. I can't remember too much about it. And Rendezvous with Rama was recently read. Skin We're In. This made my favorites of last year for nonfiction by Desmond Cole. This is a year of racism in the GTA, which is the major part of Ontario. The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, one of my favorite poems of all time. Then we have the Hunger Games series. Hopscotch by Julio Cortázar. I haven't technically finished this one, but I haven't not DNF'd it officially. It's just kind of waiting for me to go back to it. And then we have one of my favorite movies of all time, Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. Okay, so here we have The Human Flies by Hans Olav Lahlum, and this is a Norwegian book, historical detective drama. Really good. I actually have already read the second book, The Satellite People, but that was on ebook. Then we have A Treasury of Stephen Leacock. He's a Canadian treasure. We actually have an award for books based on humor named after him. Then we have some Dennis Lee books. So here I have The Difficulty of Living on Other Planets and So Cool. I just really like the size and shape of these books, and there's little illustrations on some of the pages as well. These are for adults. I do have some of his children's poetry as well. Here we have a really beat up copy of To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, and it is very annotated. I read this book a lot, and this was actually my mom's copy when she was in school. So yeah, it's very old, which is why the spine's not there anymore. I have the Earthsea series, Tihanu, The Furthest Shore, The Tombs of Atuan, and The Wizard of Earthsea. Then we have The Lathe of Heaven, which I recently read within like the past 2 or 3 years. That's a really interesting book about man's dreams who his dreams become reality. And this book is really entertaining. Satan, His Psychotherapy and Cure by the Unfortunate Dr. Kassler. Just Some Poor Schmutz by Jeremy Levin. And this is really funny book about man creates a computer that was shown to him in his dream, and the computer turns out to be Satan. And Satan has some issues that he wants to work through in psychotherapy. Yeah. Then of course we have The Giver by Lois Lowry. Talking of C.S. Lewis, we have The Chronicles of Narnia all collected into one. I used to have them in individual ones, but I decided just this one book. Here we have another well-loved book with the spine completely gone. This is a book from when I was a child, and I recently reread it. The Root Cellar by Janet Lunn. It's about time travel. A Canadian girl goes back and gets involved. I believe it's the Civil War. This is a nonfiction, A Time for Atonement, Canada's first national internment operations in the Ukrainian Canadians 1914 to 1920 by Lubomir Luchiak. And this is unknown. My Opa actually had this book. My Opa was Ukrainian. He wasn't interned. He didn't come to Canada until the 1950s. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that Ukrainian people were interned, put into camps during World War I. We have some more favorites from when I was in middle school here, and even younger, I guess. The Babysitter's Club by Anna Martin. I used to have like the whole series and all the additional series. I got rid of them when I was younger, and then I went and bought this copy of the first book just to kind of be there. And then we have The City Underground by Susan Martel. And there was another book recently, and I can't remember what it's called, but it was basically a ripoff of this book, which is about, you know, a group of people living underground because the surface of Earth has been destroyed, and then a boy kind of works as a boy and girl, I believe, work their way out to the surface and kind of discover stuff there. In the interest of keeping this video under like 3 hours long, I'm gonna cut it here and then move on to the other half of this bookshelf in another video. Okay, this is the outro. Sorry it's like this.